Hello everybody, hopefully you can hear me. We did some extra work with the mics this week, so both of them should be functioning and neither of us will have to wear headsets, which I'm mostly excited about. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and then I'm going to call Adam in and he's going to talk about different AI features that we have in Sunless Skies. And now I'll just wait and sip my coffee for the delay. Woohoo! As an American, I hope I'm not too loud. This is a very small room and it echoes. Cool. Let me tag Adam to come in and then we can get going. Yes, coffee delays are the best delays. No, I never share my coffee. I don't know what you're on about. It's mine. Well, actually, it's technically the coffee that Sam bought, so I'm a bit of a coffee thief. It's also in a Fantastic Beasts mug. And I'm wearing a Bioshock shirt today, so perhaps I should have grabbed something Failbetter on the way in too. No, Chris, but next time I shall steal something. Perhaps I could have coffee, my stolen coffee in a stolen rubbery lumps teacup next time. Hey Adam.
Hello.
We have fancy new lapel mics, so you can just put that on your collar and then hopefully we'll be good to go.
Never used one of these before. Crocodile clip.
Yes, and they're very stiff crocodile clips as well. When I tried to plug it on the first time, it flew out of my hand. So heads up.
Hello.
Yes, everybody, we have Adam. This is your first podcast, right?
That's right.
Cool. So I thought today, well, first let me have you explain what you do in regards to work for Sunless Skies. So I'm sure you'll do it better justice than me trying to explain it.
Okay. So on Sunless Sky specifically, I'm a game designer. I wrote quite a lot of the design document during pre-production. And one of the things that I'm responsible for now is the AI that controls the agents on the map.
Mm-hmm. And I talk about it a lot when we do the sprint blogs, but maybe you could just give a quick definition of what agents are in case anybody's unfamiliar.
Sure. So agents are any of the things that move around under AI control on the main map where much of the game takes place. So in Sunless Sea, that would mean the locomotive, no, not the locomotives, the ships sailing around on the Untersee, and also beasties like the crabs. So organic and man-made, or other sentient entity-made locomotives in the high wilderness.
I'm glad that you said locomotive first, even though you're talking about Sunless Sea, because I feel like that means you've tried to get yourself into the vocab of Sunless Skies, because usually it's the other way around where people start talking about Sunless Skies and then they say ship, for example.
It's true, and similarly, people have started saying Sunless Seas a lot since the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I don't know where that came up. I actually typed it once and I was like, oh no, I've become infected. Don't know where that came from. It's definitely on our Steam page somewhere in the discussions as well. Cool, so first of all, although basically there's a delay between us talking and when they answer, but can you guys hear Adam okay before we go into any deep discussions about AI and things like that? Chris is very good at herring.
Okay, it looks like we're about 15 seconds ahead of stuff actually being broadcast. That's good to know.
Yes, you are much more scientific than I am because I just kind of wing it and hope for the best, but 15 seconds sounds about right. So since you mentioned you work on AIs, perhaps it's good to mention in the last sprint blog we talked about passions. Is that entirely new to Sunless Skies, or is that something we saw in Sunless Sea?
It's entirely new.
Cool.
So In Sun the Sea, the door came open. Shall I go close it?
If you want to, but beware your mic becoming trapped somewhere.
That's a good question. Good point.
I don't want you to strangle yourself on the first podcast.
These crocodile clips are really quite fierce, so I'm sure
Yes.
I'd put up a struggle if I tripped over anything.
But you were saying in Sunless Sea.
So in Sunless Sea, the agents didn't really... They weren't very active apart from looking for fights with the player.
Mm-hmm.
We had some trading ships, but most of them were not usually actively pursuing any objectives when the player wasn't close to them.
Right.
They'd wander around a little bit within the kind of area where they appeared. And this time around, one of our goals is to make the High Wilderness. So Sunless Sea was very successful, I think, as a sort of depiction of a particular place, the Untersee. And it did that through its art and through its writing.
Yep.
And this time we're hoping to use AI to contribute to that as well, by making the agents, when they're not fighting, behave in ways which are somewhat plausible and help to create a sense of the setting and what's going on there.
Nice.
So the point of passions is to make that possible.
Okay, and how would you describe a passion?
A passion is, I guess, an objective that agents can pursue when they're not trying to fight anything, along with some rules that they follow while they're pursuing their objective.
Mm-hmm.
So I could give a few examples. That's probably the clearest way to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be a great prompt next.
I should be clear, by the way, that even though I'm going to give some examples, we haven't actually fixed on any of them in particular yet. This is quite new territory for us, so we're still exploring the possibilities, and we're iterating and making decisions as we go along about how to extend the functionality and how to use it. So basically, please don't assume that because I give something as an example of what's possible here, that specific thing will be in the game.
Always a good note for anything on our podcast.
So with that in mind, one possibility would be, for instance, that a pirate ship could have a passion which made it try and find merchant vessels.
Right.
Or particularly poorly armed merchant vessels,
Oh.
rather than dangerous ones, so that it could attack and loot them. Another possibility is, of course, trading. We don't necessarily have to implement trading as a special system anymore. Trading vessels can just have passions which cause them to try and travel to appropriate ports. We can also support potentially things like customs vessels, which, if the player is sufficiently suspect, pursue them. Passion for delivering love messages to the stars. Yes, that is also technically possible.
Why am I not shocked that was the first suggestion? Also, you guys, if you have any questions throughout this thing, if you could @Failbetter when you ask, so it will pop up bold for us, that'd be awesome. And definitely ask us as many questions as you guys would like. And so last sprint, we sort of implemented these passions. Oh, a question immediately.
Passions that cause agents of the same type to group together. That exact example has actually come up as a possible way to solve a particular design problem. Just thinking about, I can talk about it. I think it's okay. So I think we had a bit of a problem with crabs in Sunless Sea, because there were these little crabs near London, right? And they needed to be a weak enemy that players could practice on early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't make a lot of sense in terms of the setting if the weak enemy mysteriously disappeared early on. I guess we could have said they were hunted to extinction or something. Chris has told me I can even name the agents in question. Excellent.
Special days.
So we wanted a kind of weak monster type enemy in Sunless Skies that people could fight. And this enemy will be the Cantankerite, which are these very curmudgeonly, enshelled creatures. But the thing with the crabs in Sun the Sea was that you fought them maybe 3, 4, 5 times and you got the hang of it. And then they didn't have much interesting to offer, and you come back to London, you're like, oh, crabs again, and then you kind of avoid them because you didn't want to have the same fight you'd had several times before that wasn't really threatening or particularly profitable. And you'd sometimes even get this crab Congo where you'd have like 3 of them following you.
Excellent.
And obviously one thing we could do could be to make beating them more profitable. But then I think we get a problem where people felt incentivized to do something that they were finding quite boring because they'd already developed a degree of combat mastery, which meant that fighting them wasn't that interesting. So we thought, well, what if the Cantankerite have a disposition to kind of flock together? Sometimes they'll adopt a passion which causes them to seek out others of their kind.
Right.
So early in the game, you may tend to find solitary Cantankerite that are good for practicing on, but we're looking at ways to make them significantly more threatening if you encounter them in a large clump, which will tend to occur as time goes by. So we don't know to what extent yet that will fix the problem, what other things we might want to do in relation to them. But I think it's a really exciting application of passions that will hopefully make them at least somewhat interesting throughout the game.
Exciting and terrifying, presumably.
Oh, they're sometimes the same thing in our games.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably just about. So, I don't think we've talked about many of them before, but are there other such things like passions that these AI would have that we would be happy to talk about? Maybe we're not there yet.
Other elements of the AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think we can talk about the sort of general structure of it. So there are basically 4 components to the AI in Sunless Skies. First of all, there's pathfinding, which would be an easy thing to overlook, but it's obviously very important since that's how agents figure out how to get to the places that, for instance, their passions tell them to go. Mm-hmm. And it's maybe not the most exciting part of a game's AI, but it can be quite complicated and it's very important to get it more or less right. Then they essentially have sort of simulation AI and combat AI. Okay. So passions are what they follow when they are not trying to fight anything. Mm-hmm. And then when they're fighting, they switch over to being controlled by tactics. So we have this dual system of passions for non-combat and tactics for combat.
Right.
But we also need a way for agents to figure out whether they should be trying to fight something, so they know when to switch from following passions to following tactics, or back again. So we have another system, which of course we call ROF. So agents keep track of their ROF towards the player, but also other agents. And for an agent of a given type, we can define rules called provocations.
Nice.
I try to find nice names for things. I think I get a bit too cute with the naming sometimes.
I'm sure they're all very pleased with it.
So one of the things this means is that hopefully there'll be cases where agents will fight one another. Well, there'll definitely be cases where agents fight one another. But I mean, hopefully sometimes this will lead to interesting emergent situations or tactical opportunities, where by observation you can learn a bit about what makes particular agents wrathful, when they're likely to start fights. We already have tactics in the build, and we have passions. We haven't implemented ROF yet, but ROF will be in soon. And of course we already have pathfinding, since otherwise the passions and the tactics couldn't really do anything. So we've got nearly all the basic building blocks for the game's AI, which is very exciting. And we'll be moving on to implementing passions for a few of our first enemies, and also non-enemies. One of the nice things about this is that we don't have to distinguish between neutral vessels and enemies. We just have a bunch of different agents which have their own AI, which mean that they may sometimes be hostile to you and sometimes not. And we can even make... someone asked if players can affect an agent's passion. Passions can have particular requirements in order for the agent to be able to select them. And also some passions can have weighting factors which make them more or less likely to be chosen by an agent. And some of those can depend on what the players do. So yeah, they can be responsive to player behavior. One thing passions don't have yet that we might add, depending on how useful we find it, is quality requirements.
Ooh.
Certain other parts of the AI do have quality requirements. The idea here is that potentially we can make a particular agent hostile or not, depending on your story choices.
Right.
So that, or even create other kinds of rules where their behavior changes based on your decisions, or other things that have happened in the story parts of the game. One of our goals in general is to tighten up the connections between what you're doing while you're traveling around outside of the storylet interface and the actual story choices of the game, to kind of link them up in more and more different ways so that they're quite tightly integrated. So yeah, there are opportunities for that.
That's awesome. I think everybody will be really excited about that as a way to evolve the AI that was in Sunless Sea. Not to mention new players that come in as well. Do you guys have any more questions for Adam? Or perhaps there's something, usually I ask people if there's anything they want to tease, like what they're working on, but we just kind of went into the different aspects and things that you'll be working on in the future. So if there's anything else that you would kind of like to leave them with, now would be an excellent time.
Just give it a little while to see if anyone has questions.
Of course,
I think that's all I've got for this week. I might have more to say when we start experimenting with what we can do with the passion system as it is at the moment.
It'd be something really cool if we could show a little bit of that eventually as well, because I think people would be interested to see how that plays out, like in an animation, or even if we can get the game up there.
But change according to storyline sources. Yeah, so this is related to the quality requirements stuff. And I'll try and put it a bit more clearly because I think I was a bit too technical. So Roth uses these rules called provocations, and those can have quality requirements. So if you antagonize a particular group through your story choices, that group can become more prone to starting fights with you. Or one thing that we could also do if we wanted, again, for everything here, I'm not promising we'll actually do the specific possible thing. We could have two groups that start out hostile and have story events that could cause them to no longer want to fight each other, or vice versa. Passions don't currently have that kind of flexibility, although we might very well add it later. Tactics also don't currently have quality requirements, but we can. Something I haven't talked about is the rules for what agents get spawned. So which agents appear in particular places at particular times, and spawning in Sunless Skies is quite a flexible system, and there are various ways that we can use spawning rules to change what agents you actually meet based on storyline events, and we can actually use that to do some quite exciting things by changing the agents by changing some of the properties of the agents that you meet based on story events. They could become better armed if their faction is doing very well, for instance, things like that.
Excellent. And that also probably is helpful for different regions as well, right? If we want to spawn in particular types or vessels in a different area in the higher wilderness.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Specific things will spawn in places where it makes sense for them to spawn, so it won't be sort of just completely randomized and kind of uniform across the whole of the setting. There'll be enemies that appear in the Reach but don't tend to appear in other places where it wouldn't make as much fictional sense for you to meet them.
Right.
And even more specifically around particular landmarks. Or sky marks, I kind of wish we called them.
Well, we can start now. We'll just add that into the next sprint blog. It'll be great. And Chris can harry people to use that same thing.
I was overruled on sky marks, so I can't use it. I was told it was a step of whimsy too far.
Oh.
So we cannot have anything called sky marks officially.
Sorry to give you hope for that then. It must be on the brick side of the room. Yeah, just worth trying without adding the tag just to see if that works. Otherwise, you'll be very sad. And we would love to hear your question. Maybe, maybe not.
We're in suspense. How subtle it is. So there's a numerical value which is the agent's wrath towards another agent or the player. And there's a sharp cutoff point after which it will become hostile. If it's got a lot of wrath towards more than one other agent, it will use its relative wrath to decide which one to prioritize. We haven't done this yet, but I think it would be good to add some tells so that the players get some feedback when they do a thing which is provocative. There'll be some obvious ones, like if you fire at something, that will probably not be taken well. And it should be fairly intuitive that that's the case, but I think it would be good if we had some kind of visual indication that when you hit something it was displeased. Does the player locomotive count as an agent with special rules? It's coded very differently. There are some things that they share. So for instance, the armaments that player vessels can have share a lot of code with the armaments that can be used by agents. Although of course that doesn't mean that every player armament will be available to agents or vice versa. If it was set on autopilot. We don't currently have plans to take away the player's control of their locomotive while people are travelling around on the map. Can you make two factions fight each other if you counter both on a map? Potentially, yes. If they have provocations which make it possible to induce them to be hostile to one another, but which might just mean if they come within sight of one another, they get into a fight. You could potentially try and lure them together in hopes that you could then pick off the survivors or something like that. Is there a possibility of wandering into a massive sky battle between NPCs? It is very much possible to wander into sky battles between NPCs. I don't know how massive they'll be. I'm not sure yet how many agents you'll be likely to meet in one go. So for instance, 20, I think very unlikely. 3 or 4, very possible. But these numbers are kind of still guesses, and they'll all be clearer as we get further into production.
Knowing my luck, I would totally end up running into that by accident and then get my hull damaged. I can see it now.
We'll be able to watch agents fighting each other. Yeah, I think I just answered that one. It's possible that two agents that are fighting each other will both not particularly want to fight the player. So even after they finish fighting, the survivor may not attack you.
Cool. So I think that is a lovely introduction to passions and how we're treating AI differently between Sunless Sea and Sunless Skies. So thank you for joining us on our lovely podcast. And then if you could just tag Liam on your way out, that'd be awesome.
I'll do that.
And make sure, to declip yourself.
Thanks everyone for the great questions.
I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point too. Maybe when they're further along and we can see for ourselves. See, I told you they're fierce.
They are very fierce. They are like actual crocodiles. Bye everyone.
Sweet. Oh, Kira. So now Liam will be joining us, who is going to chat about animations. And hopefully he will be with us very shortly. He hasn't been on in a while, so this will be very snazzy for him to come in with new mics. Hello, Liam.
Hello.
I'll
close the door. Or...
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. My American voice tends to travel very far, especially in an echoey room. Also, since you have been on the podcast, we've upgraded our mics.
Nice.
As I warned Adam, beware, because the clip spring is quite fierce.
All right.
But the sound quality is apparently good.
Okay. How's that? Am I pointing in the right direction? Or...
I think they're fairly they pick up a lot because even when one of them wasn't working last week, basically Toby talked through Paul's mic.
Oh, okay, right.
So it should be fine. Ooh, new emojis. So,
And that's the camera, right?
yes.
Okay.
I know it's very distracting because we have many screens here and
Yes.
various different things, but yeah. So I thought it would be cool if we could talk about the animation stuff that you've been doing. And then of course we have the 2 video clips too.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So what have you been working on recently?
So at the minute, I've had some specific kind of like gribblies that I've been told to animate, and that's quite fun because already they're kind of horrid.
Nice. Just what we want.
Yeah. But at this stage, a lot of it is just feeling out what animation is required, what's the best way of doing it. I did all the animation I did most of the animation for Sunless Sea, and George, who also worked here, he did some as well. He did a lot better animation than me. Damn it! He's the master of sine wave manipulation.
That sounds like a very nice title, though.
Yeah. But yeah, like back when we were doing Sunless Sea, I was full-time sound designer, full-time programmer, full-time,
Right.
so like wearing a lot of hats.
Mm-hmm.
So like the animation always came quite low down, and I've always felt that like one of the things I felt we didn't quite get right with Sunless Sea was suggesting like the intentions behind both the player and like the enemies.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously no surprise that everyone talks about like the ship feeling really like sluggish in
Right.
Sunless Sea, and a lot of that is to do with the fact we wanted to give it a sense of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that is also to do with the fact that it's very slow. But on top of that, I think there is accidentally another issue, which is there's not that much animation. So when you kind of like start moving in a direction, or you kind of like start trying to turn, there's nothing to suggest that your input's really been received.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first you know about it is like, okay, I can see it's starting to slowly move now.
Yep.
Something that I really want to do this time round is make it so that it feels like the game is registering your intention much earlier.
Right.
So like the ship, when you move the ship now, it's kind of fortunate that we've got a different type of vehicle to deal with. So like as soon as you press left, you get like this burst of steam kind of like
It's
coming
very
out
nice
your right
animation.
side. And so like I'm trying to find ways that we can make the animations sort of like do more than just look like nice and pretty. Like they're supposed to kind of like suggest like the motivations of both you and the agents.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the things I've been doing recently is kind of like thinking about the behaviors that they're going to have. We've talked
In
about
space.
we've talked about the scribe spinsters before.
Yes.
And the animation that I have for that at the moment, they kind of like drift around quite sort of like peacefully, kind of like clutching their kind of like books.
Yeah.
And as soon as they see you and register you as a threat, like they kind of like reach out for you and sort of like they've got this kind of Dementor-y style thing going on.
Terrifying.
And they kind of like reach out, waiting until you get close enough, and then they'll take a swipe at you, or they'll like throw a handful of like pages. I'm not quite sure what the attacks are going to be yet, but they'll be doing something like that. So it's all about kind of like at a glance, kind of going, okay, I recognise that particular enemy, and I recognise that at the minute it is a threat to me.
Yeah.
Like rather than you having to kind of like guess the intentions.
Mm-hmm. That actually works really well with what we were just talking about with Adam, because he was just explaining passions and how vessels may change depending on you entering a scene, for example.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the visual. We were wondering what some of the visual tells would be. So that answers their question.
So like every time we sort of like put an enemy down at the table at the moment, we're kind of going, right, okay, what's it going to do? How are you going to know that it's going to do it? And so like the chorister bees, which they're quite difficult because like a swarm doesn't really have, like each individual bee is, well, it's massive, but on the screen, like it's they seem very small, and you can't really register whether a bee is going to sting you. That's part of the thing that makes bees so terrifying.
Yes.
I love bees, for the record, by the way. Bees are the best animals in the world. So like I've been trying to find ways to kind of like suggest the swarm's kind of like intentions, and it's a tricky balance to strike between kind of like giving like a bold suggestion of the intentions, and it feeling like a Tex Avery cartoon, and you've got a swarm that's like turning into an arrow and pointing in directions and stuff.
Yes.
And so like the chorister bees at the moment, still playing with this, but as they like begin to attack you, first off, they're just kind of like a chaotic swarm when they're when they don't have like a focus. But as soon as they kind of like spot you, like you see like 1,000 little bee eyes kind of like turn and like stare you down, and at that point they're just kind of like hovering like back and forth, like keeping you in their line of sight. And just before they attack, where they'll kind of like drive at your vessel, they're going to sort of like bunch together to just sort of suggest that they're going to become this like dense cluster. So like it's little tells like that I'm hoping will kind of like give the player a signal. It's like, okay, right, something bad's going to happen. I am definitely the origin of bees. I will take that title. Yeah.
You should hear his stories.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's like you're visualizing nightmares though, so it's also terrifying.
Yeah. The bees have been like really fun because they're I don't know, like I think the thing it's fun to animate something when I feel like there's almost like a consensus on what it is that makes that thing terrifying. Like with the Constant Companion,
everybody's favorite.
Yeah. Oh man, I kind of feel like if I had another go at the Constant Companion, I could do a much better job of it. But I remember kind of like always knowing that the thing that like would like sell it as like scary is if I could get like this variable movement speed, because it's that feeling. Hands up here. It's that feeling with a spider where it kind of like goes from like looking very sort of like laconic and slow, and then suddenly it speeds up, and you know that it's like it can really like put on a burst of speed.
Yep.
And so like when I got that working with the Constant Companion, I was like, yes, got it. I've linked into the universal fear.
And yeah, I can confirm that because on Twitter on Tumblr I see people complaining about that still to this day. I think so. Somebody asked about sound too. We're just talking about specifically animation, but presumably there's also sound effects that will be involved.
No sound effects this time. It's a bold decision that we've gone with.
I think this current sprint that we're on that we haven't talked about with you guys yet is when we're first sort of experimenting more with sound.
Yeah.
Because up until this stage we've been piecing together different bits that are more crucial, and visuals come first, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, it's from a practical point of view, it's perfectly simple to kind of like animate to no sound. It's quite hard to like create sound without like the visual stimulus there. So at the minute, part of my job is kind of like capturing all of these like small clips of like all of our agents whenever I've finished animating them to like send off to Sound Cuts, who are the companies doing the sound design for our game. So they kind of like once a month get like a great big, they get a bunch of concept art and like lore stuff and like these little like video clips of like all of the enemies. And I always do like after we've done like incredibly detailed, I'll always do like a one-liner that's like, sounds a bit like a can. Like just trying to sort of like forget all of the complicated stuff, make it sound like a can.
That's the too long didn't read bit.
Yeah, the TLDR. I put the TLDR at the very bottom.
And then somebody's asked more if it'd be on like a Z-plane in regard to the animation. I think the locomotive is where we can see that so far, right?
Oh, so yeah, we've got a bit of parallax going on, but it's not. There's no true kind of like animation on the on like the Z plane, I suppose. It's just that's just kind of an illusion. There may be more things that look like that this time round, because of we're going to be doing some mesh deformation. But I wonder if Kindleworm, if you actually mean like animations that are happening kind of like below the player, because that was definitely true in Sunless Sea. Basically, nothing below the surface was animated aside from the eye. And that's definitely something we're looking at. It's kind of like the suggestion of like things off in the deep distance that are kind of like moving.
Gotcha.
Oh right, no spiders crawling up the screen. No. So like bees, bees at different levels. We're kind of yes and no.
Straight answers here at Failbetter Games.
I kind of cheat that by tinting some of them slightly darker and making them smaller to suggest that they're further away. But yeah, the bees do have this kind of like we're trying to create this sense of them being able to move in like all three cardinal directions. So like some of them kind of like get bigger and get brighter as they get taller, that sort of thing. Taller? Higher, closer bees. Towards the screen. We got the tallest bees in all of gaming.
And then I think, so you have two animations which we can actually pull up on the screen. We won't be able to see them up there, but we can see them on my computer.
Okay, great. Well, I can sort of, hopefully I can walk people through.
Assume that Rig is the first one that you want to show?
Yeah.
So Kira will switch us over to that, and then they should still be able to hear us over it, but I'll just play it for us here so that Liam can see what he's animated for us.
Yeah, okay. This is an enemy called the Cantankerous,
which we just heard about as well. So this is a perfect setup. It's like
great.
I planned the thing.
Oh, amazing. What I'm showing off here is we never had like a rigging system in Sunless Sea. All the animations are basically individual sprites layered and then like sort of manipulated by hand. I don't know how interesting this is going to be, so I do forgive me if this is boring. What this skeletal system allows us to do is something called inverse kinematics. Now, what that basically means is rather than having to animate from, so like as an example, like you'd animate from like a shoulder down to the hand, and you'd move the shoulder joint a bit, then the elbow joint a bit, then the wrist joint a bit. And it means that if you want to demonstrate like someone like grabbing a door handle, then you really need to know where the door handle is because you have to animate every rotation that gets you there.
Right.
Inverse kinematics basically lets you set up a rig and say, now move towards that point in space, and the rest of it will like pull the body into place. So you can see in this clip I'm showing you that an example here is instead of having to like manipulate every bone in the skeleton to make the Cantankerous's tail wiggle, I am just moving this IK point at the back of it, and it's making the whole thing kind of like twist to meet it. If we go on to the next animation, very similar. Yeah, ragdolling is this kind of like similar thing. Like the ragdoll, you just kind of make it. Sorry, I've just been distracted by my own animation. So here you can kind of see the animation. It's for a start, it's doing some mesh deformation, which again we never had any of that in Sunless Sea. But it's also as it's moving, you can see that the IK point is not like moving at the exact same rate as the head. So you get this sense of like the body kind of like curving to kind of like meet the movement. As someone who could never achieve in Sunless Sea because we didn't have like an IK rig. And another thing you might see here is there's two movement animations. One where it's kind of just moving around normally, and the other where it's kind of like got its legs out. That's an example of like a hostile animation. So it will kind of like steer about with its legs underneath itself, like quite peacefully, until it sees something that it wants to get, and then suddenly it will kind of like flah, legs come out, and it will start kind of like clawing towards it.
The legs have never been so terrifying.
Yeah.
I see. They've mentioned many different crustacean and other type of creatures that we have discussed specifically, I think, when we were trying to figure out this particular creature.
Yeah. So I think we wanted something that was not a crab for a start, because we had a lot of crabs in Sunless Sea, but this is about as close as you can get to a crab without it actually being a full-on crab. But the idea behind it was to try and create something that felt like it was very hardy, so that this could be something you could potentially see almost anywhere in the high wilderness. This is our equivalent of this is a rat or like a hare. Like these are like animals that you go to any continent and you'll see an example of one of them. And we wanted this kind of like big sort of like brutey, hardy creature. And so, the Cantankerous is what we wound up with.
Excellent. Legs have never been so terrifying. If any of you have questions about animation or anything, that would be awesome. Just let us know. This is obviously a very fun bit for the rest of us to see, because we go through, obviously we see sort of Paul and now Toby's like gray boxing first, and then you're sort of like the next step.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of, it's a bit strange actually. So it's worth saying, obviously all of this is early access, yada, 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 subject to change. But this is actually, this is a grey box texture. Now it's not grey because rather than creating a grey box, I cut up Paul's concept art. So this isn't the finished texture. This is completely, this is just like a roughed up version. And the reason that I do that is so that before we kind of go all the way to making like game ready assets, I can ensure that what we're trying to animate is actually animatable. Because there are a couple of instances in Sunless Sea of like creatures that we wanted to put in the game, but due to kind of like time restraints, we kind of like relegated them to like non-fightable enemies. So I forget what they're called now. There's something prophets, the frogs, the many-eyed frogs. I'm
sure they'll remember.
The many-eyed frogs that are in the Sea of Lilies. They were originally going to be an enemy that you could fight, but Paul created this lovely piece of artwork, and I tried to animate it, and I just couldn't find a way to make it like look or move like an amphibian. So in the end, that kind of got turned into kind of like a static thing that just sat on lily pads, and like we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen this time round. So now I grey box, make sure it's animatable, and then we kind of like go back and go, okay, now we pretty it all up.
Excellent. You are a little late, but that's okay, because you will be able to find this on both Twitch and YouTube afterwards, so that's fine.
In nature, bees make a high-pitched woo when they bump into something. That is an excellent fact. I had no idea that bees did that.
I have learned so much about bees since working on some of this guys. There's a bee. My favourite poem at the moment is about a bee. It goes, consider the bee. Does it realise its mortality? Does it fear surprise? Does it see many ghosts with its many eyes? How cool is that poem? That is excellent. And now we know that when they're surprised, they may go woo woo. So you never know what will happen in the game.
It just makes them sound so drunk if it's like every time they're like, whoa.
Oh, I pictured it very British in my head, but maybe that's because I'm an American. Well, indeed, we're all wooed by bees here at Failbetter Games. So, thank you, Chris. We hope that you can reenact that at some point.
I think the way that you pronounce what Chris is saying there is is that kind of like refrain from "Where Is My Mind" by the Pixies. It's definitely how I'm hearing it.
Excellent.
Which I won't be giving everyone a rendition of that.
Well, normally we can get Cash to sing a tune, or no, but maybe he'll sing about the bees. I'm sure he would love to at some later date.
Yeah.
Cool. So, is there anything that we can kind of wrap up here? We're actually a bit over time, but there was so much cool stuff to talk about this time. It was totally fine. Is there anything you'd like to sort of tease that you may be working on next, or anything that they might be excited to hear about in the near future?
I know it's not as exciting, but in addition to like animating creatures, I'm also animating the user interface. And again, it's just trying to like add that little extra that like was absent in Sunless Sea. It's very important when you're doing that not to kind of like go overboard and make everyone watch these incredibly long like animations.
Yep.
But it's all just like subtle stuff like crossfades when you go between like your storylet choices and like your results, and just making it so that like buttons kind of like gently glow rather than like snapping to like different things. So it's just kind of like smoothing off some of those rough edges it had before, but it's really satisfying, and it's like every day I work with like the Unity animation system. I'm just like, there's even more I don't know. How far down this well do I have to get before I know everything?
Well, they've seen a very basic version of the sort of Art Nouveau aspect of some of our UI, but they haven't seen much of it. So I think that'll be really exciting to show, especially once we're closer to being able to show them something animated.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or
yeah.
like how it will go back and forth, like you were saying.
Yeah.
That question about animated festival content in Fall London would be more of a different team and probably more of a Sam question.
Yeah.
As he is the king of the Advent calendar. So...
Seeking confirmed.
Yeah, now you're spreading rumors on the podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we shall end it there if Kira is ready to sort of let us lead us down.
How do we do this? Do we table flip and...
I mean, that's what I did
here?
last time, but I think today might be a bit more calm. And although actually we have one more question, so why don't we... what is the unit you're most excited to animate?
Oh, the unit I'm most excited to animate.
And maybe you can't even say we don't know.
Yeah. So there is one, but I'm kind of, I don't know.
That picks up everything, so I wouldn't even.
Hang on.
Also, I like how you're asking me as if marketing has any idea of what we can or cannot say about lore. That was on the
Probably.
Kickstarter, wasn't it?
Yeah, no one knows what it is though.
Oh, yeah. Let's keep that under wraps. for now.
Okay, yeah.
We'll
Not
leave
gonna
that
tell
to another day.
Yeah,
But it's been noted, and I know what he said, so I can confirm at a later date.
yeah. But actually, it's not an enemy, but one of the locations in the High Wilderness is like a series of like plateaus with like, waterfalls cascading further and further into like the distance. And animating waterfalls top down is tremendously hard, but it's quite fun. It's like a fun challenge. That's the thing that I'm looking forward to doing most.
Sweet. So both a tease and an answer. Excellent. All right. In that case, we shall sign off now, and we'll see you again at the normal sort of time. So thanks for joining us. I wish I had more cool end tags like Hannah has, but I don't have any. Unless Liam can think of one really quick.
Oh, I'll use the one I always use. My name's Liam Welton. One of you's been poisoned.
Excellent.
Goodbye.
Adios.